Breaking news. The Philadelphia Eagles may be on the verge of one of their biggest moves of the offseason. And trust me, it's generating a lot of discussion behind the scenes. It's been a hot week around here, and I'm going to give you all the details. But first, make sure you hit the like button if you agree that Howie is the best general manager we could have. If possible, write this. Go Howie. Go Eagles. Let's fly high again. The Eagles are rumored to be looking to offload Bryce Huff's massive contract, and if Howie Roseman can pull it off, it would be nothing short of a front office miracle. But here's where it gets even more interesting. There's already a potential trade partner in the mix. The Detroit Lions have reportedly inquired about Huff, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The financials of this deal are a nightmare, and unless the Eagles are willing to eat a chunk of his salary, moving him may be easier said than done. Let's break it down. Bryce Huff, who signed with the Eagles after a successful season with the Jets, hasn't exactly lived up to expectations. Last season, he was supposed to be a key part of the Eagles' pass rush, but things just didn't work out. And if you want proof that the Eagles have lost faith in him, look no further than the Super Bowl. Despite being healthy, Huff was a scratch. Instead, the Eagles chose to draft 37-year-old Brandon Graham over him. That tells you all you need to know. Now, if the Eagles trade Huff after June 1st, they'll save about $5 million. But here's the kicker. His contract isn't just bad for this season. In 2026, he's set to count $11.7 million against the cap. And in 2027, that number jumps to a staggering $27.5 million. That is an absolute cap disaster. No team in their right mind is going to take that on without the Eagles paying a portion of it. So what happens next? Do the Eagles wait for a desperate team to overpay for an edge rusher? Do they use him as draft bait? Or do they bite the bullet, pay off part of his contract, and take whatever draft pick they can get? Some fans might be thinking, well, why not just keep him? Give him another offseason to develop. And in some cases, that might make sense. But here's the thing. Huff's struggles aren't just about production. They're also mental. In a season-end interview, he admitted that he got into his own head and let frustration affect his play. That is not what you want to hear from a guy who's supposed to be a cornerstone of your defense. If you're getting paid to be the guy on the defensive line, you need to have the mentality to match. And if you don't, well, Philadelphia is not the place for you. This entire situation traces back to the Eagles' decision to move on from Reddick. At the time, it seemed like a necessary evil. Reddick was looking for a new deal, and rather than dealing with a possible holdout, the Eagles sent him packing for what amounted to a conditional third-round pick in 2026. In response, they went out and signed Huff. Now, looking back, was that the right move? It's hard to say, but it sure looks like a mistake at this point. Meanwhile, another veteran name is being linked to the Eagles, Calais Campbell. At 38 years old, Campbell is still looking for one last shot at a Super Bowl, and the Eagles are reportedly a team that could be interested. But is this the right move? Personally, I'd rather see the Eagles go younger and target a defensive tackle in the draft. There are plenty of talented DTs coming up, and if the Eagles are looking to plan for the future, locking down a young, dominant interior lineman seems like a much better option than signing a guy who might only have a year left in the tank. So what do you guys think? Should the Eagles eat part of Huff's contract to get a deal done? Should they roll the dice and hope a desperate team makes a move? And what about Calais Campbell? Is he worth bringing in? Or should the Eagles focus on the draft? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Eagles news. We've got a lot to break down this offseason.
And let's be real, this situation with Bryce Huff is going to test Howie Roseman's ability to clean up a mess of his own making. Look, Roseman has had his fair share of wins, but this is shaping up to be one of his bigger miscalculations. Eagles fans know all too well that Howie loves to be aggressive in free agency, and sometimes that works. But this time, it feels like he panicked. When they traded Reddick, there was this pressure to replace him immediately, and Huff was the guy they settled on. Now, we're staring down a contract that makes it nearly impossible to move him without taking a hit. The key question here is, what is the best-case scenario for the Eagles? If they trade Huff now, they probably have to eat a portion of that bloated contract just to get a mid to late round draft pick in return. If they wait until after June 1st, they'll save that $5 million in cap space, which could make him more appealing to teams looking to bolster their pass rush. But is there even a team willing to take a risk on a player who has struggled to find consistency? And more importantly, if he stays, will he even get playing time? Remember, the Eagles already made him a healthy scratch in the biggest game of the season. That says everything. What makes this even more frustrating is that the Eagles have been making solid low-cost, high-reward moves elsewhere. They brought in Azeez Ojulari on a one-year, $4 million deal. They signed Joshua Uche at a bargain price. These are smart, calculated moves, players who could outperform their contracts if things go right. Meanwhile, Huff is sitting on a deal that feels like a giant weight on the Eagles' salary cap. And that brings us to the bigger issue, Howie Roseman's history with free agency signings. Look, nobody's perfect. Every GM has hits and misses. But when the Eagles spend big money, they have to get it right. And when you sign a guy to be a game-changing pass rusher, but he doesn't even play in the Super Bowl, that's a problem. Now, Roseman has to fix it. So how does this end? Do the Eagles find a desperate team willing to take a shot on Huff? Do they just eat the loss and move on? Or, worst-case scenario, does he stay on the roster, taking up cap space and a roster spot while barely contributing? And speaking of questionable moves, let's talk about Calais Campbell for a second. There's buzz that the Eagles might go after the 38-year-old defensive tackle. Look, there's no denying Campbell has had a great career. But is this really the answer? If the Eagles want to bolster the defensive line, why not invest in a young DT in the draft? Walter Nolan's name has been thrown around as a potential first-round pick for the Eagles, and that seems like a far better long-term investment than signing a guy who's at the very end of his career. At the end of the day, the Eagles have some huge decisions to make. Moving on from Huff won't be easy, but keeping him on this roster at that cap hit doesn't make much sense either. And as for Calais Campbell, that feels like a move you make if you're absolutely desperate, not one that should be a priority right now. Eagles fans, what do you think? Should Howie find a way, any way, to dump Huff's contract? Should they give him another shot? And what about Campbell? Should the Eagles take a chance on him or focus on getting younger through the draft? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for all the latest Eagles updates. We've got a long offseason ahead, and things are only going to get crazier from here. But here's where things get even more interesting. What if Howie Roseman actually pulls this off? What if he somehow finds a way to offload Huff's contract without completely getting the Eagles' cap space? If he does, it might go down as one of the best damage control moves of his tenure. Because let's be honest, this contract is a mistake, but great front offices don't dwell on mistakes. They fix them. And don't get me wrong, there's still value in Bryce Huff as a player. He's not a complete bust. He's got pass rushing talent. But the problem is he's not the guy. He's a rotational edge rusher at best, and the Eagles paid him like a franchise pass rusher. That's where this whole thing fell apart. If you're paying someone big money, they need to be a game changer. They need to be the guy that offenses game plan around. And when the Eagles benched him for the Super Bowl in favor of a 37-year-old, that told us everything we needed to know. So now, we wait. Will Huff be moved before the draft? Will he be a post-June 1st cap casualty? And what other moves does Howie have up his sleeve? One thing's for sure, this offseason is far from over. Eagles fans, I need to hear from you. What do you think about Bryce Huff's situation? Should the Eagles just eat part of his contract and get whatever they can for him? Or should they wait and hope for a desperate team to make a move? And what about Calais Campbell? Would you bring him in? Or should the Eagles focus on younger talent? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe for more Eagles updates. We've got a lot more to talk about as this offseason unfolds. Fly, Eagles, fly!